weeks after weeks, and the girl never returned to the floor. We've seen her turn up the ratings in golf. We've seen her turn up the ratings in basketball and the NFL, and all of these things transcend the sport like we have never, ever, ever seen before.
Look, women's basketball absolutely has some incredible young talent coming up. Nobody's disputing that fact, but there's another reality we need to face here. And the data is making it crystal clear. Ever since Caitlin Clark stepped away from active competition, we're watching the entire landscape crumble. This isn't some gradual downturn we're talking about. This is a straight-up nosedive that's hitting every corner of the sport, from packed college venues to pro leagues to these brand new projects that were supposed to transform everything.
This is from a head coach, and this shows you that people aren't really interested anymore. UCLA women's basketball coach. Now, UCLA is one of the best teams in the country, a potential national championship winner. UCLA women's basketball coach Corey Close said that I from Los Angeles, not in Columbus, was the only media member to talk with her after UCLA's win in Ohio State. Close said she didn't mind if I printed her response, so here it is in full. The coach said, honestly, if I'm being really blunt with you, the energy in the building was great, but having no media here at all for either team, or either no AP, no nothing, says a lot.
This isn't me being dramatic. We've got Corey Close from UCLA going public about something that should shock everyone. Picture this scenario for a moment. UCLA takes on Ohio State. Both squads are ranked. The only matchup between two ranked women's teams happening anywhere in the country that entire day. And guess how many reporters bothered to show up and cover it? 0. Not a single media person in the building. Close didn't just casually mention this either. She made it clear she wanted this story out there, because people need to grasp just how bad things have gotten. We're talking about January conference action between two schools that could realistically compete for a national title. The media completely ghosted them. 12 months ago, back when Clark was tearing it up at Iowa, a game like this would have had journalists fighting over press passes. The coverage would have been wall to wall. Now, complete silence.
Content creator perspective. When you put up Unrivaled, ain't nobody watching. Nobody's checking for it. I'm telling you, I see it on all the content creators' side that people are not showing real interest in Unrivaled. Now, maybe once the games start, some things will pick up, but people aren't showing an interest in watching Unrivaled content. Unrivaled's promo, I don't know, they did way more promo last year, and it just doesn't seem like the actual interest from the people is there to watch.
The college situation is just the beginning, though. Let's talk about Unrivaled, that 3-on-3 setup that was going to revolutionize everything. When they launched, the hype was absolutely everywhere. Major players, serious money behind it, this whole new concept built around keeping WNBA athletes active during their break while giving them actual ownership stakes. Last year, you couldn't scroll through sports content without seeing their promotional push. Fast forward to now, and that marketing presence has basically vanished. Content creators covering women's hoops are all saying the same thing. The clicks aren't happening. The engagement has disappeared. People just aren't interested anymore. And here's what's really telling about this whole situation. Clark decided not to join Unrivaled, and that absence is hitting them hard because what they desperately need right now is exactly what she delivers. Eyeballs. Those casual viewers who tune in specifically because she's playing. Without that draw, Unrivaled is having a tough time creating the buzz they need to keep this thing rolling.
This is a head coach saying that no media is showing up to cover the games anymore. Without Caitlin Clark, women's basketball is dying, bro. And if I see change, I will come out and say, hey, I was wrong. I'll say that. I don't have too much pride for that. But the way it's going now, nobody's interested. This here is on Awful Announcing. Caitlin Clark has the most to lose from a WNBA lockout. Here it says, will there be a WNBA season? While nothing is certain, fans and owners should be concerned.
Then we've got the WNBA situation, which is honestly getting messy. The league is deep in collective bargaining talks right now, and the players' union just gave their leadership the green light to call a strike if these negotiations fall apart. So we're looking at a very real possibility that the entire 2026 season just doesn't happen. Not postponed, completely wiped out. Now think about what that means for Clark specifically. She already missed most of 2025 dealing with injuries. If a lockout kills the 2026 season, we're talking about a year and a half without competitive basketball. All that momentum she created, those casual fans she brought in, the mainstream attention she generated, it all just sits there collecting dust. And momentum in sports doesn't hit pause, it disappears. This whole scenario hurts everyone involved. Team owners lose game revenue right when ticket sales are hotter than ever. Players lose visibility just when Wenzers are finally paying serious attention. Fans lose access to the competition they want to see. But Clark takes the biggest hit here because her brand, her cultural impact, her ability to reach beyond just basketball fans. All of that depends on her being out there playing and doing what made her special to begin with.
College basketball, we have all these awesome players that we like. Olivia Miles at TCU, Hannah Hidalgo at Notre Dame, Tanaya Latson at South Carolina. UConn is back dominant. Ava Hayden and Chit Chat and Hannah Stokey at Iowa. None of these teams are moving the needle. When you create content about these things, people aren't that interested. I'm just keeping it real. Even from a fan perspective, it doesn't seem like people are that interested in these teams, in these players.
Here's what makes the college basketball decline even more frustrating. The talent didn't just evaporate overnight. Hannah Hidalgo is putting up monster numbers at Notre Dame. Juju Watkins was absolutely dominating at USC before she got hurt. Olivia Miles is back doing her thing at Notre Dame. Paige Bueckers is finally healthy again at UConn. Kiki Iriafen made her move to USC. Anissa Morrow is doing work at LSU. These are genuinely elite athletes, future WNBA superstars. The kind of players who should be generating serious interest and viewership, but they're not, and the reason is tough to hear, but impossible to ignore. A huge chunk of the audience that showed up for Caitlin Clark wasn't really there for women's basketball as a whole concept. They were there specifically for her. Maybe it was her playing style, those crazy deep shots, the court vision, that competitive intensity. Maybe it was her personality and how relatable she seemed. Maybe it was watching her break records and challenge expectations. Whatever combination of factors it was unique to her. When she left college, that audience went with her. You can track this in the content creation world. Videos about Hannah Hidalgo or Paige Bueckers or any of these other stars get maybe 10% of the engagement that Clark content was pulling. The algorithms tell the whole story. View counts don't lie. Click rates don't lie. People just aren't tuning in anymore.
LSU's playing a bunch of bums and cupcakes, and I love Malaysia Fuwiley. She ain't played against a legit player yet. They're not playing anybody. So maybe things for women's college basketball will pick up once conference play starts. The injury to Juju Watkins definitely did not help. But I also feel like a lot of people were clinging on to Juju Watkins. Why? Because they wanted to say and feel she's better than Caitlin Clark. It still was tied into Caitlin Clark. And now that that is removed.
The truth is, most people have moved on from women's college basketball. LSU is sitting in the top 5 nationally right now. They've got Malaysia Fuwiley, who's got NBA-level athleticism and incredible guard skills, but they're running through weak schedules, blowing out overmatched teams, game after game. Even when they do face real competition, the viewership numbers aren't there. Same story with UConn. They're back to their typical dominance, steamrolling everyone in their path, but that dominance without a compelling challenger, without someone like Clark pushing them, without that narrative drama, it's just not compelling television for casual viewers. The diehard women's basketball community will always be there. The people who love the sport for what it is, who appreciate the fundamentals and teamwork and watching young talent develop. They're still watching every game, but that core audience was never large enough to support the kind of explosive growth the sport saw during Clark's final college run. Those incredible ratings, the sold-out arenas, the mainstream media attention that required something extra. That required a transcendent star. And right now, women's basketball doesn't have anyone like that actively competing.
This is what the fans need. The fans, we need Caitlin Clark playing in games. We need competitive hoops. That ultimately, that's what we need right now. Here it says, all of them would lose something, but no one would lose as much as Caitlin Clark. I will admit that I do not understand what has made Clark the singular force muscling the WNBA into top culture discussions. How does anyone like shoot it from the logo? Basketball is boring. It has made every level of both men's and women's. Words, drive to the bucket, get put on your ass like an adult, or get off my TV screen. It says, what I think doesn't matter, though. I'm not a fan of Steph Curry either, but just like Curry, Caitlin Clark has become famous for being able to sink a shot from anywhere and parlay that fame into her own brand. Forget Curry. Nike clearly sees Jordan's potential in the CC brand. That was made clear by the Christmas Day ad, which featured a ton of star cameos and a pretty sick logo. Caitlin Clark is not the best player in the WNBA. I disagree. That's clearly Asia Wilson. I disagree. But Caitlin Clark is the biggest brand in basketball right now. The WNBA is full of stars, but her presence has pushed the league's growth into overdrive. What happens to that brand if she goes a year and a half without being on the court? Remember that Clark missed most of the 2025 season with multiple groin injuries. All right. So this is just laying out for you that, Caitlin Clark has more to lose than anybody from not playing in the 2026 season, and the game needs her. Man. So at the end of the day, it is me looking at the landscape and what's going on. I can clearly see that the game is dying out. The interest in it, in terms of people wanting to watch, media, the viewership on YouTube, all of that stuff is tanking in left field without Caitlin Clark. And that is just as real as it gets, man. Get down in the comments and let me know what you think. This Keep the Vision. Make sure you.
So let's synthesize. What we're really examining here goes way deeper than just one individual player. This is about what happens when an entire sport becomes overly reliant on a single attraction, and then that attraction gets pulled out of the equation. The media blackout at that UCLA-Ohio State game isn't some random occurrence. It's showing us a much bigger picture. Without Caitlin Clark in the mix, women's college basketball has gone back to exactly where it was before she arrived in terms of media attention, which means almost nothing. Maybe some regional coverage if you're lucky. National outlets have completely moved on to other stories. Beat reporters aren't traveling to games anymore. The entire infrastructure that briefly existed to cover these teams properly has mostly disappeared. And that's devastating for players like Hannah Hidalgo and Kiki Iriafen, who are doing everything perfectly, performing at the highest level, and still can't generate even a fraction of the attention that Clark received without even trying. The Unrivaled situation really exposes something important about how audiences behave. Unrivaled has legitimate star power. Brianna Stewart and Napisa Collier founded the whole thing. Angel Reese is competing. Arikio Ogunbowale is there. These are recognizable names within the WNBA world. But being a household name within the WNBA community is a much smaller circle than being a household name in general American sports culture. Caitlin Clark managed to break into that second tier. She was getting name-dropped on NFL broadcast. She was showing up at PGA Tour events and actually moving golf ratings. She became a cultural phenomenon that went way beyond basketball. Unrivaled needed someone with that kind of crossover power to pull in casual viewers. Without her, they're struggling to cut through all the noise out there. Now this CBA negotiation and possible lockout situation is where things get truly scary for the league's future. The WNBA just wrapped up their best season in history for attendance, viewership, and mainstream recognition. A massive piece of that success was Caitlin Clark's rookie campaign. Even though she only managed 13 games before injuries shut her down, the excitement around her, the debates, the controversy, the records she was chasing, all of it created unprecedented interest in the league. Casual fans who had never watched a single WNBA game were suddenly buying tickets to see the Indiana Fever play. If the 2026 season gets wiped out by a lockout, that momentum doesn't just slow down, it completely dies. Casual sports fans have incredibly short attention spans and endless entertainment choices. They're not going to sit around for 18 months waiting for Caitlin Clark to come back. They'll find something else to follow. When the WNBA eventually returns, whenever that happens, they'll be starting from ground zero trying to rebuild that casual fan base. The hardcore supporters will come back right away, But those people who showed up specifically because of Clark, there's absolutely no guarantee they return. And here's the harsh reality that nobody really wants to acknowledge. Caitlin Clark isn't the most skilled player in the WNBA. That's A'ja Wilson. Wilson took home MVP honors. Wilson led her team to a championship. Wilson is the most dominant force in the league, and it's not even close. But dominance and cultural impact are completely different things. Wilson is adored within the basketball world. She gets universal respect from everyone who follows the sport closely. But she doesn't create the same buzz with casual fans that Clark generates. That's not taking anything away from Wilson's incredible abilities. It's just how star power operates in professional sports. Sometimes the most gifted athlete isn't the biggest draw for general audiences. Right now, the WNBA's biggest attraction is on the sidelines recovering from injuries, while the league considers shutting down operations. Nike clearly gets what Clark brings to the table. That Christmas commercial featuring her signature logo with all those celebrity appearances wasn't exactly subtle. Nike is making a massive bet that Clark's brand can reach Jordan-level cultural influence. Not in terms of basketball achievements, obviously, but in terms of becoming an icon that goes beyond the sport itself. That only works if she stays visible, if she keeps playing, if she keeps doing what made her extraordinary in the first place. The Steph Curry comparison makes sense here. Curry revolutionized basketball by making the deep three-pointer not just acceptable, but essential to modern offensive systems. Clark is attempting something similar for women's basketball. She's making the sport appointment television for people who used to completely ignore it. But Curry's transformation required sustained excellence across multiple seasons. It required him being on the court every single night, proving his style could win championships. Clark hasn't gotten that opportunity yet. One shortened rookie season isn't enough to establish that kind of legacy. She needs time on the court, she needs games, she needs to be actively competing. Which brings us full circle to the original point. Women's basketball is withering without Caitlin Clark. Not disappearing entirely, obviously, the sport will keep existing. College teams will continue their seasons. The WNBA will eventually sort out their labor situation. Unrivaled will probably find a way to survive. But the expansion, the momentum, the mainstream cultural significance that the sport briefly captured, that's disappearing right before our eyes. You see it in those empty press sections at major college games. You see it in the dropping engagement numbers for unrivaled content. You see it in the panic around a potential WNBA work stoppage, happening at literally the worst possible time. The sport needs Caitlin Clark actually playing basketball, not filming commercials, not making public appearances, not playing celebrity golf tournaments, actually competing at the highest level and doing what made her must-see television originally. Because right now, with her off the court, the evidence is absolutely clear. Casual audiences have checked out, media coverage has evaporated, the window to capitalize on last year's momentum is slamming shut. So here's what really matters going forward. If the WNBA loses 2026 to a lockout, and Caitlin Clark goes 18 months without competitive basketball, can the sport rebuild that momentum when she finally returns? Or will those casual fans have permanently moved on, leaving women's basketball right back where it started before Clark changed everything? Based on what we're witnessing right now across every level of the sport, that question should absolutely terrify anyone who cares about women's basketball's future.